What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Foodies, part of the Triple Play Fantasy Network. Here on this highly educational program, we take two of our biggest passions that are fantasy sports and food and combine them into one just beautiful thing. I got to give a quick shout out to my buddy Mike Carlin for making that insane intro for us. It was crazy. D. Mendy here, just of course, joined by my spicy co-host, the chief of food porn, apparently cooking up some smells in his kitchen that I think we're all jealous of. That's Mr. Bo McBig Time. What's going on, my friend?
Not much. I've been cooking all day today, and it smells amazing in this house, but outside it's like 108 degrees, and so I cannot wait to jump in the pool when this is over.
Something with you and going in the pool after
every time.
Why not?
We also, of course, she's unfiltered. She's finally free from Twitter jail. Those 3 L's, they're back, and they're ready to be handed out today to all the haters. It's Steffi Smalls. What's going on?
What's up? So excited to be back. I'm glad that my McDonald's performance gave me a spot weekly on this show.
Yeah, the McDonald's thing was rough. I think we were all feeling that hardcore the first few days. Couldn't look at any burgers, anything like that. It was an adventure for sure. But of course, after we did that, we brought in, we stepped up with Steffi Smalls. Now we brought in the big kahuna joining the show tonight. He's so connected as an NFL insider that he might know some social security numbers. He's the co-host of the Fantasy Focus podcast, where you might as well call him the conductor for how well he steers that ship of the podcast that goes off the rails so much consistently. Ladies and gentlemen, the man with the best hair on TV, it's Mr. Field Yates. What's going on?
Well, first of all, what a ridiculously kind introduction. And I was thinking about it when you said, I tend to conduct or get the train back on the tracks. I'm starting to wonder with the Fantasy Focus, like, if you're never on the rails, can you even go off the rails? It's almost like an existential question that I've wondered throughout my life. A lot of questions here. Steffi, what happened in Twitter? What did you do wrong here? I want to know what you did to upset the masses on Twitter that you got suspended.
Oh, great. Just one of the legendary guys, Field Yates here, is asking me why. So I have a lot of trolls on Twitter. I did get reported for a comment I made about the Eagles in March after I got someone kicked out of my eliminator. It's a whole story, but I got banned for a whole 7 days, and it was not. Wow. It was a rough 7 days. I missed my followers. I missed yelling about football and tweeting out my content, but I'm back and ready to bring the heat a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like you learn a lot during those 7 days. So I imagine you'll never be sent back into Twitter jail again. Can I have one question per person, and then we'll let you guys take over the rest of the show?
Yeah.
You must not have followed Burner Smalls.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Burner Smalls was the best.
I didn't last the whole 7 days, okay, Yates?
She lasted like 4 hours.
I don't blame you. I go 3 hours without Twitter, and I got blood from the back of my neck from scratching so much. Exactly. All right, so Bo, I got one question for you, and then I'll go to D. Mendy to wrap things up. You cooked all day. Have you consumed the food that you cooked all day, or is that for a post-podcast feast?
No, I finished it probably around 45 minutes ago, and got one of those freedom dip sandwiches because it's Memorial Day. It's an American holiday, and so there's 2 things I can't really involve, and that's the French, because go look at the history books. So I made freedom dip sandwiches with smoked tri-tip, caramelized onions, melted Swiss on ciabatta rolls, and I made my own au jus. So the whole house smells amazing right now. And now I can't wait to wash down all that flavor with some cold brewskis.
Okay. And my last question for D. Mendy. You're like our fantasy Hulk, right? Like a lot of us in the fantasy community are either dad bods or just we can barely bench the bar. How the hell did you eat McDonald's? The amount of McDonald's you ate last week, that must have gone against every fiber of your being, right? I mean, like, there's no macro proteins in McDonald's. I mean, maybe there is, actually. I don't know that for a fact, but that must have been, I mean, I guess that's sort of the premise of the show, but like that one had to hit a little bit differently.
Yeah, I fasted the entire day to try to balance my calories out, and it was just miserable. I felt like we were joking in our group chat. I was like, we were all sweating McDonald's for like days after.
Mm-hmm.
It was rough. I don't think I'm touching
I'm the
McDonald's
fast-
ever again
yeah.
after that.
I'm
gagged.
a fast food guy. I eat fast food a lot, and I'm not really like proud of it. But even I was like, I drove by a McDonald's, like,
Me too.
like it's like, just like driving by it. I didn't even smell it. I was the Golden Arches, and I lost it.
Phil, would you have taken that down? Could you have done it?
I always talk a big game. My wife and I watch a decent amount of Man versus Food, and I always think to myself, like, I could handle this challenge. I'm not a huge guy. Like, I weigh 170 pounds. I'm not like, you're not going to confuse me with an NFL player or anything. No surprise. But I do I have a large appetite, and I'm like Clean Plate Club card-carrying member. That being said, like 7,000 calories in one sitting or whatever it is, as opposed to like, I'll do like a burger and a dog at like a cookout, like, a little bit of a different spectrum there. So I probably would have, the show started at 8:00 last week. I probably would have been basically like useless I'm usually pretty useless on most shows within 5 minutes, but truly useless within 5 minutes on that show last week.
I think the worst part is like once you've eaten it so much, it just tastes like disgusting. Like it doesn't even taste good anymore. It just tastes like bread and soggy and disgusting.
Yeah. You guys should probably have there should be some sort of, I don't know if it's like a wager, but like, whichever one of you goes to McDonald's next out of the three, the other two have to pick up the tab. Not that McDonald's is pricey, but like, if one of you decides it's time to return, the other two have to, Venmo you the $8 or whatever it is for your number 6.
So I'm never going back there. Like that is like
you retired.
Like I will not
to me,
it. I did not do well that night after the challenge because I take it too far. Obviously, I had to eat the most because that's just how it's too competitive. But I didn't do well afterwards, so I will not be returning to McDonald's ever again.
Maybe for the best. Maybe for the best.
I didn't have a reversal of fortune, but I kind of wish I did. But I have an 8-year-old daughter that loves getting a plain cheeseburger Happy Meal about once a week. And so I don't even know if I can bring her to that.
Maybe just next time we're going to do like a steakhouse and we'll keep it classier next time.
Yeah, that's an idea. Though. I can get on board with that. I like it.
Field Yates returns for the steakhouse episode. I can already see it coming. But this episode, we got a lot of fun stuff planned. It's the 6-pack fantasy draft strategy show with Field Yates, of course. So Field, you're a big beer guy, and that was why we kind of wanted to theme the show towards beer or any kind of alcoholic beverages. So I got to know first, what are you drinking tonight?
Let's see. So I think I'm going to kick it off with, this is a Future Glow. It's from a brewery up in Burlington, Vermont, called Burlington Beer Company. Very creatively named. One of my favorite beers to have in the summer. I consider Memorial Day weekend an official start to summer, but I think the official date is June 21st or something like that. But yes, a little Future Glow. I've got a big Sherb right next to me. Nice raspberry lime sherbet, one of my favorite breweries, Holmes in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But cheers to you all, and then I want to hear what everybody else is drinking.
Cheers. Well, Steph, you go ahead because you got to stay on brand with what you got.
I have White Claws. I did try to find my favorite beer, which is a Sea Quencher. I'm a big sour beer girl. Phil, you're in Connecticut as well, aren't you? So
I am, yes.
Yeah, so I'm in Connecticut. So Two Roads, I was like wishing I could have stopped there on the way back. I couldn't stop in there to get some beers. They have a great sour beer there as well. But I do like Sea Quencher. They didn't have it in ShopRite, so I figured we'll just stay on brand. So I do have Black Cherry White Claws, and those will go down quite easy tonight.
I love it. I mean, you can't go wrong with the claw, to be honest with you. Like,
I love that.
There'll be plenty of those this summer.
Well, Bo, go ahead. What do you got? And then I'll say what I got.
So I did a couple. I'm more of a bourbon and rye drinker, but for this, I wanted to go back to my hometown, Chico, California. I'm actually from Corning, California, the olive capital of the world. More olive trees in Corning, California, the entire country of Italy. And so we went with a Sierra Nevada from Chico, California.
So good.
My favorite out of all of theirs is Hazy Little Thing. And then I went with the Sacramento 5-pack because I had a road soda on my way back from the grocery store that's 4 blocks away. But at Track 7 Brewery here in Sacramento, the Panic IPA.
So, Phil, I'm curious. will you judge me if I told you instead of beer tonight, I was very curious to try the new Truly 4-pack of the berry pack.
Not at all. You know why I'm not going to be mad at you is because I'm a sucker for good marketing. Shiny object syndrome gets as bad as anybody. And, like I walked to the grocery store and, it's like, I feel like a few years ago, one of the major mustard companies, because, there's like everybody buys like Heinz ketchup, right? Like Heinz or Hunt's, I feel like. Whereas in mustard, there's 6,000 different types of mustard. And I feel like a few years ago, one of the major ones changed the color of their bottles. Like it was not yellow. It was like they were red, mustard in a red bottle. And I was like, for no reason other than the fact that it's mustard in a different color bottle, I'm going to buy it. So when I see the Truly in the new varieties, the new flavors, the new cans, like the cans have a little denser color to them, like I'm probably going to try them too.
Yeah, look at these things. I mean,
yeah, those are beautiful. It's a work of art right there.
Yeah, well done.
Bunch of suckers.
Plus, these go down pretty easily.
I just hope you guys don't judge me for drinking straight from the can, because some beer snobs are like, if you don't pour it into a frosty glass, it's not even a beer.
Yeah, no judgment whatsoever. Like certainly if you have a chilled mug and you want to drink it, yeah, go for it. If not, like it's like they made it in a can, like. It must not be that bad if they're willing to sell it to you like that, right?
Right.
It's like beer to me.
So Phil, then I want to get into our first part of this before we jump into football stuff. Again, you're the beer connoisseur, so I got to ask you, what goes into a good beer for you?
Well, so actually, it's funny you mentioned this because we were just, in the vein of why cans are cool. I think can art is awesome. I think can art is like something that can definitely make a difference. Because when you're going through, a beer fridge at whether it's a Packy, whether you're at whatever, high-end liquor store, you're at the grocery store, you're at the closest place to your house, it's a wall of beers. And, it's not like you have the ability to sift through every label and read, the flavor profile. Sometimes you get sucked in by the art. So I'm a huge fan of can art. I'm not going to lie to you on that part. And then one thing about beer is that there are two things I really like about it. First of all, the brewery community is that I think the fantasy community is pretty good about this in some ways, and then other ways not as great about it. Is like I've never met a brewery that like considers every other brewery strictly competition. Like most brewers that I know want to try other beer. Like, hey, they might say like, oh, you live in Connecticut, like, or you live near Treehouse. Can you give me some Treehouse and ship it to me, or whatever it is that they like. The other thing about beer is that some of it's mood, right? So like, am I going to have a sherbet every night, a raspberry lime sherbet? Probably not, right? But if, maybe towards the summertime when it's a little warmer out and you kind of have that appetite for a sweeter beer anyways, like I'm in. And then in the winters, I'll have, many more stouts than I will during the summertime. And I shout out to, that's good, Paul. The beer art on Coors Light is amazing. So, definitely can art. I would say flavor profile goes in. I would say aftertaste goes into it. And then some nights, some nights you just need one, but you need one that's going to do the job, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're trying to relax, settle in for the evening. You don't want to have to go through 4 beers to get there. You just want to have one beer. Maybe it gets you a little bit of a buzz. I'm kind of an old man sometimes. It doesn't take much. And then there are other occasions when it's like 1 o'clock and you're out and you have a full day ahead of you. And you don't want to put down like an 8.5% beer at that first one, because if you have like 4 of those, then I'll be asleep by like 5:30. So you're a little more diplomatic with your, with your proof here. So the ABV a little bit lower. You find that nice day drinker, good session beer, and I'm in.
Yeah. So are you a big IPA guy, or is that like if it's not an IPA, you're not looking at it, or do you like the hoppy kind of stuff that comes with the IPA?
I am, yeah. I mean, I definitely love IPAs, and being from New England, we have so many good New England style IPAs. And as a matter of fact, like some of the best breweries that people think of when they think of New England largely subsist off of sort of citrus forward beers, right? I mean, Treehouse, they definitely make their stouts, and they've got all kinds of different stuff. But these guys, Treehouse, they almost all their beers have some sort of citrus. Element to it. Some of the great beer breweries up in Portland, Maine, another place that's just like iconic beer. Love all the brewers up there, but some of the ones like Bissell Brothers, like tons of citrus sort of New England style elements too. That like I love that, but I try to be equal opportunity, right? Like some winter days, you're just sort of calling for a stout, and then you just sort of need it. Sort of like a little more woodsy, sort of sometimes bordering on chocolatey flavor to it, and I'm in for it. And then there are other nights where you're like, I don't even want like. I know that beer dehydrates you, but you get up, you're on the golf course, and you're like, all I want is a beer to hold in my hand in between my terrible shots so I can laugh at myself a little bit. And so I want to have, maybe it's 6 Trulies, maybe it's 6 Coors Lights over the course of 18 holes. We can get down with the Trulies. I'm equal opportunity again.
No, I love that. Is it true, though? Because I remember hearing, are you actually a breakfast beer guy? Do you have a beer with your breakfast?
So I have, certainly have, and I'm actually going to the bachelor party this upcoming weekend. And I would not be surprised if there are some breakfast beers involved. But some beers, like some companies make breakfast variety beers, like beers that are intended to be consumed by noon at the latest, right? Like typically the flavor profile is a lot lighter and sort of crispier versus something like really heavy and hoppy and all that. I guess any brewery can do any sort of flavor at once. But that's sort of what I think of when I think of a breakfast beer. So I'll get down with a breakfast beer every once in a while. No doubt about that. Have to.
I feel like I need to be taking some notes right now, because you're just taking us to the school of beer right now with all the. Again, I know it tastes good, but I don't know a lot of the stuff about it.
That was the only class I got an A on in Chico State.
Let's go.
But what about you, man? What do you think goes in when you like a beer? What is it about it that stands out to you?
So a lot of what Field said, it really depends on the weather, the time of day, what kind of mood I'm in. If I'm in a gloomy mood, I might need a little perky, crispy boy like a Miller Lite or something like that to pick me up. If I'm golfing, it's definitely crispy boys. But if I'm just sitting around the house and grilling, and I'm going to be endurance drinking for 12 hours over a brisket, I mean, it really doesn't matter. I like to go heavy. I might pull out an IPA or even a barley wine like a Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada, like 11, 12% alcohol, where it's just like it's basically you're there for a good time, not a long time.
I like that. If that doesn't exist, you should tag that or something, because that's pretty funny.
I'm sure it does.
Oh yeah.
Steffi, you're obviously White Claw's black cherry, right? That's the only flavor that you like mostly out of all of them. So what is it about the black cherry? And then specifically, is there like any other beers or any other alcoholic drinks you really like as your go-tos?
Yeah, I'm kind of so I love my black cherry White Claws. That's like, I just want to finish my day and need to get it over with. I'm going to have a couple White Claws and just relax, chill out. But I do love beer. It's funny that you brought up Portland. We have a house in Maine, so I grew up in Maine, going to the breweries in Portland. So I have a big, that's where I fell in love with beer a little bit. I am a big sour beer person, which I know is not everyone's favorite. But if I'm sitting at the brewery, there's some live music on, I can kick back a bunch of sour beers. And then anything that's like sour with a good citrus flavor is like totally my thing. I can get down with that all day.
How do you guys feel about Kona? Because I think that might be my favorite beer. Is that a consensus good beer, or is there some kind of I feel you kind of gave a weird look on that?
If people don't, no. If people don't like the Kona Brewing Company, they can honestly there are plenty of other podcasts they can watch. Now, those podcasts aren't as good, but they certainly can go watch them. If that's what they're interested in. I'm a fan. So again, have you guys ever heard of the Untapped app?
Yeah.
Cool app.
Yeah,
Untapped's cool. So Untapped, for those less acquainted or unacquainted, is an app. It's a beer checking app. So you try a new beer and you check it in. You have the opportunity to rate it. You can give it up to 5 stars. You can also describe it. You take a picture. You can, they have a variety of different sort of categories. Like, is it poppy? Is it sour? Is it, citrus based? Is it whatever? And you can check any of those so that the people that go and consume it or are at a bar and they see, hey, these 8 beers are available, they can do some research. And so I'm not a big, I don't really negatively review any of the beers that I have. And I look at the beers like an experience. So you give it to me, I'm not sure in life I try anything once, but you give me a beer, I try anything once, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy it. Like, I'm pretty sure it's going to fit. Might need to be the right mood, but it's going to fit at some point in my life.
Do you like those fruity beers that have like a really strong fruitiness to them it's like almost like you're drinking like a different type of drink? Are you a fan of those at all?
Yeah, I've got a terrible sweet tooth. My wife, we were talking about this a couple of days ago because we were talking about like the things that each of us has picked up from the other since we got married. And she was like, when we've been together for 5 years. She was like, I did not grow up ever eating dessert. Now with you, it's like she's like, every third night, she's like, where are we going for ice cream? And I'm like, it's a great question, right? And that's just like going out for dessert. Mostly it's like, we have downstairs, the fridge is always, or the freezer has always got something. So, those fruity beers, there's something really cool that I think, at least, they're like these seltzer fruit smoothies, like hard seltzer smoothies that are becoming more and more popular. I've seen them, and they almost act as like dessert, right? Like you may drink it with beer, but if you have any left over after dinner, or you may drink it with dinner, I should say, if you have any left over, it's like the perfect way to satisfy that sweet sensation. So, I get down with them. Like probably if you told me for the rest of my life I could only drink, I'd have to rank my beers. Like I think probably IPAs, like a New England style IPA would be my go-to. But like whatever's the number 10 option, I can still live with. Like I'm still cool with it. Like I'm still going to be happy drinking that most times.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's hard to make a really bad beer. I feel like it just, again, you know what you like. If you're an IPA guy, you like a hoppy beer, you go for those. If you're not, you like a lighter beer. Have you ever had the Guinness Blonde by chance, Field?
I have not had the Guinness Blonde, but I've been to the Guinness Brewery, which that's down your neck of the woods, right?
Yeah,
you must be close to that. Great brewery. Great facility. Unbelievable. I've had many a regular Guinness in my life, as I'm sure many have. And I've not had the blonde though, but every beer that I tried when I was down there was pristine.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many great beers there, and I think there's only that one and the one in Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's only
correct.
Have.
Yeah.
So, you guys have all your good beers up north, but we get the Guinness factory here, so it works out pretty well.
There's some great breweries. Cushwa down in Maryland. I don't know how close that is to you, but that's a great brewery down there. Like there's good beer everywhere.
Yeah, and again, what better talk about beer than with the connoisseur? And I knew you were going to live up to the name, because spending 20 minutes talking about beer is only something Field Yates can do. I know you know your stuff. So I do want to get so Field, I know obviously no one's getting drunk on this stream. You got a job at ESPN to keep, even though our contracts got lost in the mail somewhere. I don't know where they are, but
no, they're on the way. They're on the way. Slow times right now, Everything takes a little more time.
You can't. The U.S. Postal Service. What are you gonna do?
Crazy.
So I do want to start talking about our 6-pack of football questions as we get into draft season right now, and then everybody's doing a bunch of best ball drafts, and they're kind of dipping their toes in the water, making their rankings, all that fun stuff. I know you guys are right in the midst of doing that stuff as well, as it'll start picking up soon. So
yeah, totally.
Our first question I want to ask, Field, and I don't know if you've ever actually said this, because you're a good host. You do kind of a lot of navigating. You inject your opinion sometimes, but I feel like this is lay your cards out now, what type of player you are. And let's start with this first one here. And I want to know what type of drafter you are, in the sense of, do you like going 0 wide receiver or 0 running back to start when you draft?
Definitely more 0 wide receiver. But I will say this. What kind of drafter I am in general, I'm an inconsistent drafter, to the point that like I defy my own rankings sometimes, and I don't know why I do it. And, I'm a big believer, and this may not be popular, or it may be very popular in the fantasy community, that I've always felt that rankings were like a little bit of a fool's errand, right? Like it's one I consider a much more useful exercise to be tiers, right? So, for example, like I think at the top of the board this year, I probably could still consider Christian McCaffrey in a tier by himself, but after him, there might be between like 4 and 5 guys that are sort of like all right there, in my opinion. Like none of them would surprise me if they finished as RB1 this year, whether it's Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and Ezekiel Elliott. Those are the 5 that come to mind for me besides CMC. So like I had the third pick and I went Saquon in one draft, it doesn't mean that if I got the third pick in the next draft, I'd also be taking Saquon. So I'm an inconsistent drafter, but I do tend to skew much more zero wide receiver heavy. There are so many smart people out there that have written about the advantages of zero RB, and I can totally see it. And I know that like when you can just pulverize your opponents with like Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce and DK Metcalf carrying your line every week, like that's glorious. At the same time, like, you know, I'm the guy that fears 1 week starting like, you know, I don't know, like LaShawn McCoy and Frank Gore, who are currently unsigned. Like by week 8, those are my starting running backs, and they don't even play on a team anymore. I get very fearful of that reality.
Yeah, I think it's like knowing like, oh, I'm starting James Conner and I'm starting those guys that are just like, you know, Melvin Gordon. I'm not even super confident as, you know, a guy you want to start as one of your running backs with how it's constructed right now. It's almost like, yeah, you see those other teams and wide receivers always so much depth. Like it's, I feel like it's crazy deep and even more so in the recent years. Steffi, what about you? How do you like to attack your drafts from the beginning? Are you a mix? Do you like to go zero RB or zero wide receiver?
So I am a mix. I'm also inconsistent. Dave Kluge just laughed and said Steph's a wild card. They were making fun of me in the group chat today because you never really know what you're going to get. I try to gauge it off of how the draft is going also because, you know, if everyone's out of the gate going all quarterbacks and then here I am with the 109, I'm not going to take a quarterback. I'm just going to wait until someone falls to me a little later and then I'll go with it. But out of the two, I do tend to go more zero wide receiver because I feel like you can get better value. You know, I just took Galladay in like the 10th round. I mean, of a startup. That's like, now I'm stealing from you guys a little bit. So I think that there is more to it. I think running backs, I feel more confident in taking those top guys. And with wide receivers, you can see a little bit more breakout from even like guys like Adam Thielen, you know, he's falling in a lot of these drafts. And I think he still has a lot of value. So I'm definitely higher on taking my running backs, getting them out of the way. And then as everyone knows, I do like to take a tight end early. I want to sleep at night and I don't like the jump in between. You know, I want one of the top tight ends. I don't want to deal with you guys. And then I'll take Jonnu as my second tight end later. So, but that's where I end up going.
Steffi, what do you say to the people that say you're a tight end hoarder? Is that true?
I am, but I also do have a tendency to do this zero quarterback thing. And I will let you know that it works out because what happens is I end up doing trades where like I give a very low end tight end and Dobbins for Lawrence and Mac Jones. And then it's great. It's like I did fantastic because I got all the guys I wanted because I didn't take a quarterback until the 11th round. And then now I'm fine because I still have some guys and I still have Daniel Jones because we're all deciding we don't like him.
I love it. No, you stick to your guns, and that's what I like about you, that you don't let anybody else sway you from your thinking. It's awesome. Bo, I want to go to you next. I feel a passionate answer coming from you, so I'm going to step back and let you take the floor. So go ahead.
So my draft strategy it varies based on what position I'm in. If it's a dynasty draft and I have a lot of picks, I'll kind of just take the best player available. But if I'm stuck on the end of a draft, like on either poll, I'm going to go get my guys, and I will reach as far as I need to get the guys I want. One of my guys this year that I've been reaching for and driving everybody nuts is Kyle Pitts. I think he's more likely to replace Julio Jones as the X receiver than Hayden Hurst as the tight end in Atlanta this year because he's a unicorn. He's a guy that we haven't ever seen something like before. Darren Waller started his career as a wide receiver and just kind of fell into a tight end type role down the road once he went through all of his personal issues. I think we're going to see more of an accelerated type of path for Pitts because he's everything you want a wide receiver to be with a tight end body. And so I'm taking him as kind of like my dynasty wide receiver 1 for this class. And I don't care if I'm spending a ton of draft capital on a guy that I absolutely want on my team on every draft. then take it for what it is. I'm a gogetyourguys.com drafter. That's what I do.
We need a website.
I love that.
Yes.
Needs to be in existence. Bo, you got me so fired up. I'm finishing my
And
my
I
first
also
tool.
don't draft wide receiver until I absolutely have to. Like one time, like I've done like 30 or 40 underdog best ball drafts so far, and most of
Shout out
them.
Underdog.
Shout out Underdog. They're awesome. I'm indebted to them severely. And let's just say I hope I do pretty well this year. But one thing that I just did was I took 4 straight running backs and then out of my first 5 picks, I had 4 running backs and Darren Waller. And so I ended up needing wide receiver, and they were pretty well dried up too, but I just drafted an all ceiling. I drafted like 7 straight wide receivers with high ceilings, including 3 rookies. Devontae Smith, the Slim Reaper, is going to blow up this year too. That's going to be exciting to see somebody that stature just take the league by storm.
So what I'm getting at is you guys feel about 0 running back as this can of empty Truly that you pretty much crumple it up and you throw it away.
Let's go.
Not
I love
necessarily.
it. Well done.
So
a modified 0 RB can work if you're in a certain draft position for redraft. Like if I'm sitting at 1, 2, or 3, and I want one of those top 3 running back studs, I get them, and then I just load up on a stud tight end, and then a bunch of stud wide receivers like Terry McLaurin and Amari Cooper is going to be huge this year for volume. It's like get a bunch of those guys once you have your stud Saquon Barkley and your stud Darren Waller, and then you got 3 wide receivers in a row. You can go a long time.
Let's emphasis on modified. Like the idea of 0 RB gives me so much anxiety. I cannot even explain to you. I will never be a 0 RB, and I love that journey for everyone that is on that path. I personally could never do it because I just feel, scarcity between some of these guys. I just can't do it. I'd rather have some solid RBs and then go from there.
Well, let's talk about a position we haven't talked about yet as I crack open this fruit punch Truly here. And let's talk about waiting on quarterback. And I think everybody in the fantasy space talks about, hey, I don't want to take my quarterbacks early. It's so deep. But maybe there's somebody in here that feels differently. I don't know what you guys think about. So, Field, I want to go to you first. Are you okay not getting Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen and waiting on a mid-tier guy?
Totally. Yeah. And there is, and you're right. I mean, everybody in the fantasy space seems to bang this drum, I would say cohesively. So I don't know that I have any original thoughts on it, but just the idea that, if you look back to last year at the end of the season, which quarterbacks you'd be saying to yourself were like, no doubt about it, starters, right? And they're the ones that came out of absolute nowhere, like Justin Herbert, that no one was talking about going into the season. And then there were guys that, were you? Oh no,
Oregon Ducks for
life.
No.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't think you'd get that opportunity though.
But there were some that we were talking about a little bit coming into the season, or enough that ended up good again. And then there are guys who we didn't talk about enough, even though we knew they had the chance to be good, and they were good. Like for all the incredible things that Ryan Tannehill did in 2019. He was still kind of underrated going into 2020. So I'm always comfortable waiting on one of these quarterbacks. Like, I have to think about it. I could probably rattle off like 10 right now that if you told me I landed with any of those 10, I'm totally fine with it. And that number probably stretches easily to like 12, 14, 16. And the reality is that if, let's say as an example, you think Matthew Stafford's like somewhere between the 12th and 16th best quarterback in fantasy this year going into the season, if he doesn't pan out, there's going to be opportunity to go elsewhere, right? Maybe Sam Darnold puts it together out of nowhere in Carolina, or, maybe somebody steps up, like Ryan Fitzpatrick ends up carrying the Fitzmagic to DC. So there's just way too many of them for me to feel like I need to put a major priority on them. Now, if somebody slips, if, it's the 5th round and Patrick Mahomes is just sitting there for me, I'll pull the trigger. But it's rare that I start the quarterback train. I usually end up somewhere in the back half of it.
Phil, this may be the one thing in life that I can say I'm exactly the same. Maybe different every other way.
I think more. You got the hair thing going for sure. Hosting going for sure.
Your hair's a lot better than mine.
You know what? I think you might be sleeping on it. Your humility stands out, but I think you're selling yourself short here. You're selling those locks short.
You're at that 102, okay? It may
The
not be
101,
101, but you got that 102 popping.
Oh, you're bringing it too, buddy. I see it.
It's too damn hot.
You got hat hair right now.
Yeah, look at that. Bo, where do you stand on this waiting on quarterback? I assume you're on the train with us here.
The last time I drafted a top quarterback was in 2017, and I got him in the 10th round, and his name was Patrick Mahomes. That was the earliest I've drafted a quarterback in 5 years. So I punt them all the way down the board. I'm talking we have I think I have 1 or 2 leagues left with one quarterback and a traditional DST and a kicker. And I'll actually reach on a kicker before I reach on a quarterback, because we're talking the difference between quarterback 5 and quarterback 25 is so minuscule. We're talking no value, no reason to stretch it. And there's always 5 or 6 quarterbacks that start as a sleeper and end up in the top 10, like Tom Brady last year. I had Tom Brady in like the 14th round last year, because people are just like, oh, we doubt he can learn the new system in a COVID year. He's 43 years old, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, he's pretty smart. And if Jameis Winston can do it, I'm lighting the fuse right now.
No, I agree. I don't know where I was going with that train of thought. I'm going to go to Steffi next. Steffi, when are you drafting your husband, your future husband? And how do you feel about waiting on quarterback?
So I will tell everyone now, the position I think the least about and I wait the longest is quarterbacks. If I can wait and I can get Ryan Tannehill in like the 11th round because everyone is sleeping on him for a ridiculous reason, I'm going to do it. I own 0 Patrick Mahomes in any dynasty league. I have never drafted Patrick Mahomes. Kyler Murray is my quarterback 1. If I can get Kyler Murray, I'm going to take Kyler Murray probably. But other than that, I've noticed, especially with these startups I'm in, this is like a quarterback frenzy this year, more than years past. And you know what? At that point, and you guys know, genetically, I have the 111 or the 112. It's in my genetics. I literally can't draft otherwise. It's just how it goes. So if that's the point, then yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take Saquon, CMC, someone like that at that point. And then at the turnaround, maybe take a wide receiver for myself or probably a tight end, let's be honest here. But quarterback, I'm going to wait on. And, you make trades. And Fitz is a guy, he's falling really far. I might have a problem next year in Dynasty, but as far as redraft and best ball goes, give me Fitz all day. That's fine. Or in Dynasty, I'll deal with it next year. But, there's a lot of guys like Tannehill, Fitz, Kirk Cousins even, Daniel Jones. There's a lot of guys that fall very, very far that have a huge upside.
And apparently you're avoiding Dak at all costs. So
no, I'm not. I swear, I love Dak. Dak is my QB too.
I love that. So let's move to, okay, so the first 2 are kind of slam dunk. So I'm now going to get a little controversial here. Let's talk about drafting handcuffs. And when I say drafting handcuffs, there's 2 sides of this fence you can go on here. You can draft your own running back handcuffs, or if you're a real risk taker, like you're drinking your second Truly already, then you go and you take someone else's handcuff to try to be like, hey, you know what? I can have 2 RB1s instead of just the backup in case my RB1 goes down. So Field, which side of the fence do you like to play here?
I've sort of twisted in the wind in recent years on this. By the way, I'm onto the big Sherb myself right now. Very good. Delicious beer from Holmes. But yeah, so speaking generally, I only take reserves if I know where, I feel like there are poorly defined backups for some of the top running backs, right? Tony Pollard is the guy if Zeke gets hurt. I don't know who the guy is right now if Saquon is unable to give it a full go this year, right? Like, could it be Devontae Booker? Yes. Could it be Rycole Armstead? Also, yes. If Deion Lewis is around, could it be Deion Lewis for a little bit, right? There are so many options there that I'm not bothering. So when it's Alexander Madison behind Dalvin Cook, yes. And in terms of grabbing somebody else's reserve, my answer is basically from round 10 on, I'll draft anybody. Other than drafting the kicker or defense until the last 2 rounds, I'll try anything. Like, I'm in. Like, I'm good with it.
Yeah, no, I
Bo
agree.
Bo was giving me some stank face there for a little bit. So
Bo, go ahead, Bo.
So
The floor is yours, my friend.
like how Steph hoards tight ends, I hoard handcuffs. Like I think last year I had a 8-team bench with like 6 or 7 of handcuffs that might or might not have been for my own running backs. And the one handcuff that I refused to even look at was Alexander Madison, because every time he gets a chance, he does literally nothing. And he's never impressed me. I've watched a ton of his tape. I'm trying to like the guy. I'm trying to find a reason why, if I have a bunch of Dalvin Cook, why wouldn't I have Alexander Madison? And then I'll just pop the tape in again and watch it again and go, absolutely not. So I would go after every handcuff's handcuff, but not Alexander Madison. I can't do it. And so that's why I gave you the stank face on Alexander Madison. And then, of course, the Giants' backfield after Saquon is an absolute dumpster fire. So I don't blame you there one bit. But I'm the biggest Tony Pollard fan on the planet. So I was definitely with you on that one, Field.
Well, I'm going to
say.
There
we go. All right, we can see partially on eye.
You completely alienated Alexander Madison ever coming on this show. So
I like the guy. I just don't think I want.
He's not coming on the show anymore. You have to
like
own
him
it
as
now.
a person. I'm sure he's great, but I've never rostered him, and I've never wanted to. Sorry.
Well, if I get him on the show, then you can apologize to him in person. But we'll see. We'll
for not rostering him in fantasy. I'm sure
we're not apologizing.
He'll be all kinds of shit.
Steffi, what about you? How do you feel about drafting your own handcuff or someone else's handcuff?
I don't know. I hate the word. Can I let you guys know this is like my least favorite word in fantasy? I like whatever this is. Handcuff, I can't stand. I'm cool with handcuffs. If it's a productive offense, aka I like to have 2 running back ones. So like if I could get both the Browns running backs, cool. And then other than that, I think we're all drafting handcuffs at that point, because really most teams only have one dominant running back. So at some point we're all just going away and we're drafting our handcuffs like crazy. My favorite handcuff ever is Wayne Gallman, and I will continue to draft him, and I don't care. No one can stop me. I will continue to support that man. And I think, in best ball, give me all the Wayne Gallman I can. In the 18th round, fine. Love it. Give me Wayne Gallman.
Did we just become a Wayne Gallman podcast? It sounds like we are.
I don't think Fields is happy about that.
Wayne Gallman won me a couple. Yeah. Wayne Gallman won me a bunch of money last year. So I'm definitely cool with Wayne Gallman.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I can't get behind being a Wayne Gallman podcast. So let's move on. Let's talk about. We'll go to these last 2 topics here, and let's talk about taking a tight end early. Steffi, I got to have you lead this one off, because again, the tight end hoarder, avoiding the mid-tier clump, if you will. Is this consistent every single time? I know. All right, I'm with the draft with Steffi. I'm not getting Travis Kelce.
So in Dynasty, you might get yourself some Kelce if I allow him to fall. It depends how greedy I'm being that day and how many trades I feel like having the headache of doing. But I think that getting one of these main guys, one of these top 4 tight ends, like if you want to sleep at night and not really worry about like doing your lineup and dealing with it, get yourself a good tight end, be done with it. And then after that, we see this every year, especially last year, I think, the discrepancy between these like top 4, top 5, maybe top 8. Like I'm not bought into a lot of the guys. I don't really love all the rankings I'm seeing on them. But after that, it's like, I might as well just wait, and I'm going to take someone like Jonnu a little bit later on and just deal with it. But I'd rather go ahead, get myself a good tight end, and be done with it.
That's fair. I mean, it is very stressful when you start the ones that you're just praying for a touchdown every single week, and you're not going to get much out of. Field, when you go and you take tight end, what are you doing? Are you getting the elite guys? Or are you chucking and praying, hoping that you land a Robert Tonyan at the end of your draft?
Yeah, I mean, Steffi sold me pretty hard right there. So that was kind of how I was drifting anyways. That's kind of that's my focus, all things being equal. Now, it doesn't always work out perfectly, but there have been too many weeks where you're sitting there and it looks competitive. Like the 4 o'clock games are winding down. You're clinging on to a reasonable lead, and you realize that, like, the projections, which at ESPN are done by the incredible Mike Clay, are forecasting you're going to lose by 6, and you're like, well, I still have my tight end to play in the Sunday night game. And then you're looking at your tight end, and you're just like, oh boy, right? You're like, whatever. Like, I've got Jack Doyle still playing. It's like, you need like a 4 for 82 and 2 touchdown game from Jack Doyle, but you're counting on like a 2 for 21 catch or 2 catch for 21-yard performance, and you're like, I'm just going to get smothered. So yeah, I would love an elite tight end as many times as I can. Easier said than done, but hopefully Bo's guy, Kyle Pitts, immediately emerges as that guy, and we can have, I would say, maybe closer to like 6 or 7 great tight ends as opposed to like 3 or 4 great tight ends.
Yeah, so Bo, I guess this leads in perfectly. How early are you taking Kyle Pitts in your draft?
Depending on my draft position, I've taken, if I'm in that Steffi spot of 11 or 12, I'm taking him at the 4 or 5 turn. And that's or the 3-4 turn. Sorry, I'm going early. It's 3-4 turn. This one time, like, best ball draft season's upon us. I've done a ton of them, and the guys that I've been drafting with a lot know exactly how I feel. And so I saw Pitts go at 2-9 earlier today, and I was mad because they did it just to spite me. And Waller went at 1-9 in a draft that I was in because they know that I have Kelsey, and then I have Waller, and then I have Pitts in my redraft rankings. And I was just like these guys just like, let's make sure Bo doesn't get his guy. If I don't get one of my guys, I'm punting tight end to the very end, and I'm getting a Blake Jarwin. I'm getting somebody who's going to be on the field a lot, in a high-powered offense, high volume. I'm even getting Hayden Hurst down the road because of how I feel about Pitts' role in that Atlanta offense. That's something that I can bank on, is that his role probably won't change a whole lot from last year, and he had a pretty solid season. If I can get a guy like that at the very end of a draft, I'm still happy because I at least know that they have a role in the offense where the points are going to be scored.
I can't disagree with you, Bo. I can't. But this last topic we're going to get to real quick here. I might have to fight somebody with this one because I feel very strongly about this. And it's not just the Trulies talking to me right now. Is it completely taboo to take defense and kicker before the last 2 picks of your draft? And before you say it is, let me explain that Jason Sanders last year would have been RB24. Younghoe Koo would have been RB26. That's right in the Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, Chase Edmonds, and Austin Eckler range. So with that type of scoring, is it crazy to, hey, you know what? I want a Justin Tucker, or I want somebody that I want to make sure that is going to be a guaranteed lock to be a top 5 kicker. I'm going to go draft them in the 3rd to last round, 4th to last round. Is that completely taboo? What do you think, Field?
I think it is, because nobody in their right mind was championing Jason Sanders at this time last year, right? So it's possible that you guess right on who Jason Sanders will be this season. I think it's unlikely, though, right? I mean, Justin Tucker is as steady as they come, but he's still at the mercy of the offense, right? And if the Ravens are just living in the end zone, that mitigates field goal opportunities. And if for some reason they regress offensively, which I don't think they will, then the 40 and 50-plus yarders aren't going to be as available. So I understand that it can happen. I try to play the odds as much as I can in fantasy. So I leave my last 2 picks, maybe if I'm picking at the back end of the 14th round, I might get a little bit ahead of the curve, but otherwise rounds 15 and 16 are my kickers and defenses all day, every day.
Man, Field, I thought we were like connected during this show, and then we are
kindred spirits still. But if you want to take a defensive kicker early, have at it. It's all you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's definitely taboo. Obviously, most people don't do it. And it definitely is not usually the same defense that was number 1 the previous year as the defense number 1 next year. Jacksonville being the first example that pops in my head of how great they were, and then they fell off the following year. But again, it is very important that you have that stuff locked up. Steffi, I'm assuming you're going to probably be with Field on this one. You're not waiting to draft kicker probably till the end, right?
Yeah. Interestingly, though, enough, I will admit that I have, I'm getting a little, I don't want to use the word freaky, but I'm going to a little freaky in these best ball drafts that I'm doing for the Eliminator. And I have gone ahead and taken a defense and a kick because, you get to these final rounds and then I just see crap on the board a little bit. And it's like, I'd rather have the Washington defense than Wayne Gallman. I know I just praised him, but it's true. I would rather
say the Wayne train.
I love Wayne Gallman, but we're talking about he's still going to sit on my. I'd rather, especially in best ball, I'd rather go ahead and take a defense that is going to definitely give me points than take. What it looks like when you get to the bottom barrel there. So normally yes, but lately I'm changing it up a little bit.
I like changing it up. That's at least a vote of confidence for the D-Mendy side. A little bit. Bo, go ahead, wrap up this conversation. Go ahead and just poop completely on what I just said.
You have to have a damn good reason to take a kicker or a defense that before the end of the draft. And it comes down to value and replacement value. If you're the kind of person who's saying, I'm going to leave my kicker on the bench for his bye week and keep him when he's on his bye week, when I pick somebody else up to fill in for him, then I guess you're crazy enough to take a kicker early enough for that to be a case. But I picked Justin Tucker in the second to last round a couple of years ago, and I dropped him when his bye week came up because he was replacement level at that position. We're still talking about a position where your top 12, 14 kickers are all within a point per game of each other. And so there's no replacement value there. So if I'm dropping a kicker for his bye week and picking up a random other streaming kicker, then I'm not going to take it early in the draft. There's no reason for that.
All right, David's kicking argument gone.
Come on, there you go.
I'm glad that my
I got the New England Patriots defense in 2019 in the very last round, and look what happened.
There you go.
Yeah, so well said. Well, we want to make sure we get Field out of here. But Field, I want to first say thank you so much for coming on the Fantasy Foodies today. It was an absolute blast to have you on the show and to talk beer, to talk fantasy football. Just from all of us, it was an absolute pleasure to have you.
I appreciate you guys immensely. I had a lot of fun, and I learned some things. I realized where I need to soften my stance on some takes now going forward. I'm going to draft Wayne Gallman and Kyle Pitts, and I'm going to take some lessons from you. I'm going to drink some more beer. So cheers. And Bo, by the way, thank you. Your hot sauce, phenomenal. Your spice rub, phenomenal. You got a special gift, man. So you guys keep doing it, and I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, always, man. This was a blast for us. Steffi, what about you? Can you give us a little plug before you head out of here?
Sure. Of course, as always, my dad joke that I like to say, you can find me on your timeline. If you don't find me on your timeline, you can find me directly at Steffi Smalls with 3 L's for Tom Brady's 3 losses. And that's it. Thank you, of course, Phil, for coming on. Very pleased to be on a stream with you. This is fantastic. Dream come true kind of deal.
Oh, yeah. And what about you, my friend?
That's the best.
So you can find me on the main streets of Twitter, usually making fun of Steph. And that's at Bo_McBigTime. And of course, BigTimeFlavorCode.com, where you can find Field Yates' favorite hot sauce and seasoning blends. And it's been a dream. This last year has been crazy, just being able to spend more time in the kitchen and create things. And it's a blessing to be on the stage with somebody like Field Yates, which it's still not even real. So I'm gonna watch the replay and be like, man, what a dumbass.
First of all, no. Second of all, you guys, it's the inverse is what's happening here. So truly appreciate all the kind words, and we'll do it again at some point. We'll do it again.
It sounds like we might have our steakhouse episode booked potentially down the road.
Yeah. Love it.
But yeah,
Mandy, I need some gym tips too. So just feel free to send some thoughts my way.
Mandy, do you know where my gym is? Because I need to find it.
Yeah, I need to find mine as well.
We'll make something happen for sure. But for everybody, we appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you check out the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. Keep trying to grow that. Find all these episodes on there. It's the Field Yates of YouTube channel. So if that tells you something, then you go in and check that out. But
so it's the younger, more better looking, hot sauce loving variety of
that
There you go.
yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
Cheers to
But,
that.
we're gonna cheers you out on that. I have an empty
Cheers.
Truly or a full Truly, so I'll open that up for the cheers. But thanks everybody for watching. We will catch you guys soon with another episode of the Fantasy Foodies. Until then, everybody be safe. Talk to you guys soon.